Hello everyone, our topic this week was requested by Sam Reddick Gaming. We'll be going over the Blight and the Darkspawn from the Dragon Age series.
So, first things first, a little bit of disambiguation. Darkspawn are creatures in the Dragon Age games that are related to the Blight and carry the Darkspawn Taint. The Darkspawn Taint, more often simply called the Taint, is the malady that the Darkspawn and the Blight spread. Finally, the term Blight has several meanings. Generally, the term refers to the event of a massive invasion of Darkspawn. We're talking size of armies here. However, the terms Blight and Taint are often used interchangeably as well. And on occasion, the Darkspawn and everything related to them are simply collectively known as the Blight. For purposes of this video, Darkspawn will refer to the creatures, the Blight will refer to the large-scale invasion, and the Taint will refer to the disease-like effect that the other two bring about.
So first, let's talk about the Darkspawn. The Darkspawn are the most obvious incarnations of a Blight. They are the physical bodies that we see roaming the countryside, corrupting, slaughtering, and kidnapping everything in their path. The Dragon Age games are filled predominantly with four races: humans, elves, dwarves, and the Qunari. The Darkspawn are collectively the offshoots of each of these races created by the Taint. To date, nothing and no one in the Dragon Age games has ever been shown to be immune to the Taint, and the Darkspawn are the eventual result of any of the races of the world succumbing to the Taint. In general, Darkspawn are bestial, low-intellect creatures, driven by a need to destroy, propagate their species, and seek out the old gods. More on that in a bit. Darkspawn are always grotesque bastardizations of what their parent race once looked like. Generally pale-skinned, many of them appear lipless, simply sporting maws filled with razor-sharp teeth. As a whole, the Darkspawn make up for their general lack of intellect by being almost universally stronger, tougher, and/or faster than their parent races, with the average Darkspawn being able to hold its own in combat with several average soldiers at a time. These enhanced physical attributes are tempered somewhat, however, by light. Darkspawn fear and are in fact at least marginally weakened by sunlight. They spend the vast majority of their existence underground, and nearly all sources agree that Darkspawn encountered in their natural habitats are significantly more vicious and aggressive than those encountered on the surface, even under the cover of nightfall.
Next, let's discuss the Taint. The Taint is the most pervasive and worrying aspect of the Blight in the long term. The Taint is, in simplest terms, the disease carried by all Darkspawn and spread to everything in their wake. While in-game scholars do not entirely agree on whether the Taint affects the souls of living creatures, is simply biological, or both, the results are the same. The Taint can infect everything, and will do its best to do so. Soil, water, crops, plants, livestock, wild animals, sapient creatures, even the mighty dragons are all susceptible to the Taint, though dragons are significantly more resilient than just about everything else. Land is made barren and desolate, plants die out, the soil becomes infertile, water is either corrupted, spreading the Taint to all who drink it, goes stagnant and unusable, or simply dries up entirely. Animals are corrupted, turning into nightmarish bastardizations of what they once were, shedding fur, feathers or scales, bleeding continuously but never dying, growing spurs and boils, and turning feral and ravenous. All of this, of course, assuming that the Taint doesn't simply kill the poor creatures outright. The same is true of elves, humans, dwarves, and Qunari. As far as we can tell, it's about a 50-50 split between dying outright because of the Taint or becoming infected, though dwarves and Qunari are hardier people in general and thus seem slightly less likely to die outright. The Taint is spread by the mere presence of Darkspawn, but is more particularly concentrated within the Darkspawn themselves. The blood and fluid of Darkspawn are poison and thus nearly as deadly as the Darkspawn themselves. Hundreds of thousands of warriors have survived battles with Darkspawn only to succumb to the Taint in the aftermath because blood sprayed in the warriors' eyes, leached into their skin, or dripped into their mouth as the Darkspawn died.
When a normal person is corrupted by the Taint, but doesn't have the good fortune to die right off, they slowly mutate into a Ghoul. A Ghoul is not an undead creature in Dragon Age, but instead an intensely deformed and maddened person. All Darkspawn hear the Call, a kind of song supposedly sung by the old gods that beckons the Darkspawn to find them. The sicker a person becomes, the more fully they begin to hear the call, until they go completely mad and side with the Darkspawn as a Ghoul. Working with or for them in one form or another, though males are as often killed or tortured as not. Fertile females of any given species, however, suffer a far worse fate. A Ghoul does not ever evolve into a fully fledged Darkspawn. The fate of all Ghouls, even those not slain, is death. eventually succumbing to the taint just like anyone else. Instead, women that become ghouls and find their way to their Darkspawn kin are taken, force-fed the flesh of Darkspawn, and eventually transform into brood mothers, the source of all Darkspawn. Brood mothers can spawn thousands of Darkspawn during their lifetime, and interestingly, brood mothers are the only variety of Darkspawn that require any sort of sustenance, and most captured prisoners are fed to brood mothers so that they can continue to breed. For the rest of the battle-ready Darkspawn, the Taint itself sustains the creatures without any need for food or drink. The Taint also grants its own degree of power. In the Dragon Age world, most magic comes from one of three sources: the Fade, the Dream World, Lyrium, essentially crystallized magical essence, or living blood. The Taint, though, is a fourth source of magic, and the very few intelligent Darkspawn that exist can use the Taint in their own bodies to fuel magics rivaling all but the greatest mages in power.
Now let's talk about the Blights and the Old Gods. The Old Gods are creatures that assume the forms of great dragons. There are 7 of them, each named, each at one point worshipped by the people of a nation called Tevinter, and possibly before that by the elves, but more on that later. The Old Gods are all locked away, scattered deep in the earth. Every single Darkspawn in existence constantly hears the Call, which is supposedly the song of the Old Gods, with most information saying that the Old Gods compel the Darkspawn to come find them, while a handful of in-game scholars think that the Darkspawn seek out the Old Gods to corrupt them out of vengeance. That has to do with the origin of the Blights, which we will get to shortly. This constantly heard song is either the cause or one of the results of a kind of hive mind shared by the Darkspawn. In general, no one will is great enough to command more than a handful of Darkspawn, and between Blights, the Darkspawn scatter into smaller groups, raiding, digging for Old Gods, etc., but largely independently of the rest of the Darkspawn as a whole. However, once in a great while, the Darkspawn find an Old God, corrupt it with the Taint, which must take some time because, in all seriousness, dragons are very resistant to the Taint, and free it from its confinement. Once an Old God has been tainted, it becomes known as an Archdemon and is the undisputed lord of the Darkspawn hordes in their entirety.
An Archdemon commands the entirety of the Darkspawn species, compelling them to the surface world en masse to lay waste to everything in their path. When an Archdemon walks the world, the Darkspawn fight with the precision of an actual army rather than small warbands. Additionally, the skies are shrouded in angry, rainless clouds for miles around an Archdemon, shielding its Darkspawn minions from the angry light of day, and the Taint spreads for miles. It's technically unknown whether this drastically more virulent Taint is due to the Archdemon itself, or the massive concentration of Darkspawn, though we presume it's the latter, with a strong possibility of the truth being a mixture of these two ideas. But on top of all of this, the true danger of the Archdemons are that they are incredibly hard to kill. The Darkspawn are soulless, empty husks, and when an Archdemon's body is slain, no easy feat by the way, its soul simply shifts to the nearest available Darkspawn husk, transforming that creature into a fully draconic Archdemon form and continuing its rampage. After decades of experimentation, the Grey Wardens, an organization founded specifically to combat the Darkspawn and the threat they possess, discovered a way to permanently slay an Archdemon. However, the process is almost always fatal for the Warden who strikes the final blow. The main character from the first game, Dragon Age Origins, can avoid this death, but only through cheaty shenanigans. Every other Warden in history to have permanently slain an Archdemon has died as a result.
All of this information leads to one obvious question. How did the Blights and the Darkspawn first come about? Interestingly, this is one of the most mystery-shrouded questions in the entire Dragon Age franchise. We have a few hard facts and a few pieces of information to string possible answers together between them, and little else. First, the facts. The very first Blight occurred after a group of 7 extremely powerful Tevinter mages, each the high priest for one of the 7 Old Gods, the same Old Gods that can be turned into Archdemons, received guidance they believed to have come from their Old God masters to pierce the veil, a boundary separating the dream world called the Fade, the source of almost all magic, and the physical world, and step foot physically in the Fade, specifically the Golden City, believed to be the home of the god of creation, and by doing so gain access to the creator god's power and become gods themselves. According to legend, when they arrived, the city was blackened by their touch and they were expelled for their hubris, cursed to become the first Darkspawn. Conversely, according to one of the 7 mages in question, when they got there, they found the city empty, already blackened, and found the Taint already there. Rather than being cursed or inflicted by it, they drank it in, seeing the aforementioned power within the Taint and determined to use it to empower themselves. Gross, probably unwise, but undeniably effective. Either way, when they returned to our world, they scattered. Some accounts say that Tevinter's ruler forcibly scattered them. Others say that they fled away from the light. They were essentially super Darkspawn at this point. But either way, they disappeared, and we know that at least 3 or 4 of them went underground.
After that, the first Blight happened. Counting the events of the first Dragon Age game, there have been a total of 5 Blights. These events have caused such widespread destruction that over the centuries, treaties have been made to ensure that when a Blight occurs, everyone gets their collective heads in the game and fights it together, no matter what stupid politics, and sweet mercy do these games have frustrating politics, are in play between nations at the time. Because the only thing that not working together will do is make sure that everyone dies instead. With the exception of the last Blight, the one from the games, which lasted only 1 year, Blights last decades or more, with the shortest lasting about 12 years before the Archdemon could be slain, which removes the Darkspawn organization, thus causing them to scatter into smaller groups and flee back beneath the surface, and the longest, the very first Blight, lasting nearly 200 years.
Those are the hard facts, but there are some other interesting threads of potentially linked information that are worth noting. Please note all the hardline information has been presented already. The rest of this is us making some small logic jumps, but these jumps include massive spoilers for Dragon Age Inquisition. If you don't want any spoilers for a rather major discovery made in the game, go ahead and put us on pause and come back later. To be fair, this game is really old, so if you don't care, go ahead and join us for the rest of this. The events of the 5 Blights themselves are fairly well documented, despite covering just over 1,000 years of history from the first Blight to the most recent. However, history before that is not nearly so well defined. Wars have occurred, cultures have been destroyed, erased, and absorbed, and the histories told by the world reflect that, with pieces missing or information regarding the same events telling very different stories based upon what group is writing about them. Between all of these different information sources, we presume that the first-hand accounts of people who were actually present trump histories that have been written and rewritten over more than a millennium.
Keeping that in mind, one of the 7 mages that presumably started this mess claims to have found an empty black city inside the Fade that was already filled with, or at least had locked within it somewhere, the Taint that causes the Blight. Now, thanks to Dragon Age Inquisition, we know that Solus was one of the old elven gods, Fenharel, and according to legend, Fenharel was responsible for locking the elven gods away in heaven, and the Forgotten Ones, supposedly evil counterparts to the elven gods, away in the abyss. There are 2 things that make this interesting and possibly connected to the topic of the Blights. First, Solus tells the player, point blank, that he created the Veil, the wall between the Fade and our world, and that he did so to lock the elven gods in the Fade on the other side, away from the world. That's very literally 1/2 of Fenharel's legend, and the old gods, those of the Darkspawn corrupt into Archdemons, have been locked away deep beneath the earth in some form of prisons, and Solus acts alarmed when he overhears of a plan to wipe out the remaining old gods before they could be turned into Archdemons, indicating that if nothing else, he knows what they are and sees some importance in them.
But the possible connections don't end there. The abyss that Fenharel is said to have locked the Forgotten Ones away in is a term used interchangeably with the term the Void, and the Void is also referenced in another elven legend, a legend of a hunter god who grew tired of hunting mortal creatures and instead took to hunting the Forgotten Ones themselves, in their home of the Void or Abyss. But when she would return, she'd be afflicted by madness, growing worse each time, until she began using weapons of darkness and armor from the Void. After doing so, plague began to eat her lands. Does that sound familiar? A dark plague, corrupting the land and driving people mad, all coming from some dark place called the Abyss, which, based on other legends, could be a place beneath the earth where the Forgotten Ones were locked away, just like the old gods are locked away. Maybe it's nothing, or maybe we're right, and these thoughts all add up to a different origin for the Blight than what most of the world of Dragon Age believes. For the time being, it's academic, with the focus of the game series going in other directions. But who knows, if Solus gets his way, maybe we'll get to see the Black City ourselves in the next Dragon Age game.
I will save the elven people, even if it means this world must die.
Why does this world have to die for the elves to return?
A good question, but not one I will answer. I am not Corypheus. I take no joy in this, but the return of my people means the end of yours.
And that's basically the story of the Blight, Scourge of the Dragon Age games. We hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please leave us a like and share it with someone you think might like it. If you have ideas for videos you'd like to see us do in the future, do like Samurai Gaming and let us know in the comments down below. If you'd like to see more videos from us in the future, be they lore or Let's Play, go ahead and hit that subscribe button.
In the meantime, everyone, this has been
True Masters and Morons, signing off.
Thanks for watching this video. If you want to see more like it, hit this subscribe orb.
To see our last Let's Play, click or tap the link on the right.
For our last lore video, go to the link on the left.
And for a video chosen by the gods of YouTube from our channel, hit that link on top.
Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.